Hi, I'm Scott Parks, technical trainer for TriWest. In this video, I'll be showing you how to install our four-sided lock flooring system, also known as an angle-angle system. Step 1. The first thing you'll want to do is make sure that you are installing a four-sided lock system. To identify a four-sided lock system, you'll need to make sure your board has two tongues, one on the short side and one on the long side, and two grooves, one on the short side and one on the long side. The four-sided lock system boards also come with an attached underlayment on the underside of the product, so you don't need to install an underlayment. Step 2. Now let's make sure you have the appropriate job site conditions. You'll need to do this in a well-lit area. The ideal temperature conditions should be between 65 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Our four-sided lock system can be placed on either concrete, wood, or gypsum substrate. However, the substrate must be firm, flat, dry, and clean. This means the substrate must not be moving or bouncing around. It should also be flat between 3/16 of an inch in a 10-foot span. If there are any dips or bumps in your substrate, it will need to be leveled out. The moisture vapor emissions of your concrete need to be within the limits specified on the product. And the substrate must be swept clean with no dust or adhesive residues. Step 3. Okay, now we can prepare the installation. This is a floating floor, which means it will require a perimeter expansion from 1/4 inch up to 1/2 inch, all the way around. It cannot touch the walls or cabinets. To maintain this expansion space, we'll be using spacers. Step 4. To start the installation, lay your spacers along the walls to maintain our perimeter expansions. You'll want to lay out your first rack and slide your first board up against the spacers. To connect your second board to the first one, you'll have to angle it about 30 degrees, line up the end joints together, and lower your board back to the ground. Repeat the same thing all the way down the row. On the first board of the second row, you'll start by lining up the long side with the first row. Angle it 30 degrees, line up the end joints, and drop your board into place. Take your tapping block and tap the boards together to ensure that they are well connected. On the second board, you'll have to start by lining up the short ends and dropping the board into place. Then, to connect the long end of the board to the first row, you'll have to slightly lift the second row, take your tapping block and hammer, and gently tap along the length of the long edge until the gap between the rows closes. Give the short edge a light tap as well to make sure those end joints stay connected. Continue that process down the rest of the rows. Step 5. Once you get your first rack done, slide it up against the spacers that you set up to maintain the perimeter expansion. You'll also want to start working on top of your floor instead of behind it. Step 6. Next, we'll need to check if your floor is running straight. For this, you'll need a chalk line or a dry line and a buddy. Have your assistant hold the end of the line on one side of the floor and run a tight line to the opposite end. If there's a bend in the floor, you might have to adjust the spacers accordingly to set the floor straight. Disassembly. If you need to disassemble a four-sided lock system, you'll start by grabbing the end row and lifting it to a 30-degree angle, releasing the lock mechanism. Then you'll push it away from the other rows. To release the short end, simply lift and pull away the board. And that's how you install a four-sided lock system. It's time to go to another floor installation. I'll see you there.